Alright everyone, welcome to our next training video. This one is going to be on Google Drive, on Google File Stream, and on Google Backup and Sync. And so these are three services that are all kind of connected that you should be aware of, and you are welcome to decide if they are helpful, would be helpful for you. So the first thing I want to do is explain what each of these services are and how I use them at Fauna in Focus. So when talking about Google Drive, there's a few things we need to just clarify. Google Drive is a website. So first and foremost, it's a website. It's accessible from your Google platform. So you can click here and open Drive, or you can bookmark it, or you can just type Google Drive and it'll bring you here. And this is what it looks like. So this is kind of the fundamental thing that Google Drive is it's a website, and on this website you can manage cloud-based files. And so what I mean by that is you have files that are being stored on the internet here. And this is how you can view them, access them, and edit some of them. This is nothing that you see here exists on your personal computer. This, what we are looking at right now through Google Chrome, everything that we see here is in the cloud, as we say, meaning it is stored on servers all around the world. It's accessible via the internet, and you need an internet connection to see these stuff. However, there are integration means so that you can have it connect to files that are actually on your computer. So just a few basic things before we get into it, because this one is going to be a little bit important to understand. You can add files to Google Drive in many ways. So the first thing is you can just click on plus, and you're going to have the option to create a new folder, or upload files, or upload whole folders. So if I just decided, you know what, I need to upload a folder, I'm going to click on this, and it will now open this browse menu in Windows File Explorer. Now from here, I can choose any folder that I want. So let's say this one, and I can upload it, and it will upload this whole folder. And something to note is that if this folder contains subfolders, it will upload those subfolders as well, and it will keep it organized just as you've created it, right? Now, that is the first way of adding files to Google Drive. So just plus upload files, and you can pick a particular file, or plus upload folders, and you can add a particular folder. Now, whatever page you are currently on is where that file will upload. So currently we are sitting in the top of my drive. And as a reminder again, your drive will be for whichever account you are currently logged into, which is shown in the top right. So right now we are at the top level of my drive. If I click on the down drop arrow here, I can see that I have 3 subfolders within my drive. There's also shared drives, computers, and shared with me. These are all things to be familiar with, and we're going to go through them all today. My drive is yours. This is stuff that you have put into your Google Drive for online backup. And you get a certain amount of storage space here based on whatever your account is. So the G Suite account that we have comes with 30 gigabytes per user of free storage. I believe private Gmails come with 15 gigabytes, but it's very cheap to upgrade, and we will go through the various upgrade plans that they have available as of late 2020. We'll do that a little bit later in this video. So whatever folders are here, if you open that folder and then you click plus and continue with the process as shown, those will upload to that current folder that you are looking at. Another way to do this would be to actually just drag and drop. And so let's say I put this window over here on the right, and let's go ahead and open a file on my computer on the left. So this will work with both folders and with files. So if I just select on, let's say, downloads. So if I take this file, I can drag it over here. And you'll notice it gives me a few options. Oh, hang on, let me close this notification so that we can see what it's saying. When I drag this over here, there's a little pop-up at the bottom of the screen. So it says drop files instantly to upload them to Fauna Focus International, because that is the folder that I'm currently in. However, I can also put them directly into one of the subfolders, and this works always. It also works for folders, so I can add this whole folder to Fauna Focus International or to a website. And again, if I add a folder, it will retain any subfolders that might be living inside that primary folder. All right, so you can drag and drop. You can use this plus symbol to upload. Now, that's all great if you want to back stuff up to the cloud and then share it. However, what it does is that it leaves the files on your computer and the files that are online completely separated. And so at Fauna in Focus, the use case that we do is we use a program called Google Backup and Sync. Now, it used to just be Google Drive, and you had the online version, which is accessible on Chrome here, and you had the offline version, which could allow you to sync from your computer. But because they're constantly updating and changing, they now call it Google Backup and Sync. And so Google Backup and Sync essentially connects your computer to Google Drive so that all of what I was just showing you is done automatically. And so you can see that from here. So from the Google Drive page, we have two options, Backup and Sync and Drive File Stream. And so what I will do now is just give you my explanation of what these two things do and which ones I think are more useful. So for me, Google Backup and Sync is more useful than Google Drive File Stream. Google Backup and Sync determines a particular folder on your computer that will sync automatically with your online Google Drive. And so what that means is that working on your computer in Windows, you can open files, you can close them, you can edit them and update them, and whatever you do with that file, that information will be automatically uploaded to your Google Drive online without you having to do anything. And when you download and run this program, it will run in the system tray. And so I'm just going to go ahead and click on this little icon here, which is the Google Backup and Sync icon, and you'll see that my Google Backup and Sync is currently syncing, and it tells me that. And you'll see there's little drive symbols, and it says visit Google Drive on the web, open Google Drive folder on your computer that's referring to. So if I click on this, it brings me here. This is my Google Drive folder on my computer. You'll see I've named it FIF Google Drive. Anything that goes into this folder will automatically be sent to the internet, to my drive right here. So this folder that you see here is exactly what you see here. If I make changes within a folder, it goes into the right place and everything is nicely managed. The other thing that's great is that it also downloads automatically. So it's not just about uploading your changes, but it's also downloading changes. So what that means is if you have a shared drive, a shared folder, excuse me, I don't want to say a shared drive because that's actually something a bit different. If you have shared one of your drives with your teammates and somebody adds something to it that you don't have on your computer, Google Backup and Sync will automatically see, hey, the Google Drive folder online has something new in it, it's not on your computer, and it will automatically download it in the background, right? So for us, what this means is that all of the computers have all of the files that they need always up to date on their computer. There's a few things to consider about this. Number one, syncing and downloading and uploading your files can use a lot of data because videos can be huge, for example. PowerPoints can get pretty large, and if it's a large photo library, that can take a lot of data and a lot of time. So you want to make sure that you're not doing this if you are streaming across a hotspot from your mobile phone, or if you are using a mobile phone SIM card to connect to the internet, if you're using broadband internet rather than Wi-Fi or LAN. And so you can always pause it, so you just literally come here and click the three dots and pause, and it will pause the syncing. or you can quit it to shut it down for now, and that's fine. But this running will consume your internet's bandwidth. So if you have a lot of people syncing a lot at the same time, you'll find that the internet in your office is going to slow down. You can limit the speed, and I'll show you how to do that. But the great thing is, once you set it up the first time and everything is synced, it's not so terrible, because it's just syncing the updates, and just, any small changes, it's updating those kind of quickly in the background, and you don't have to do anything. So let me give you the use case for this system, right? So you're having Google Drive Backup and Sync running on your computer and having Google Drive online. So we have touchscreen activities running at the Nature Discovery Center. There might be a mistake that a visitor spots in that activity. Maybe there's a spelling error, there's a typo, or some information is simply out of date. Now, if this was a custom design application, it would be a lot of work to go and change it. But because we use PowerPoint for all of our interactive education programs, it's actually very easy to make those changes. What's more, I can actually do that from anywhere on Earth. So I would go to my computer, and I would open on my computer, I would open a particular folder designed to do exactly that. So we actually have a folder called NDC Stations, and this folder is where we run all of the stations for the Nature Center. And so the Nature Center has its own Google Drive account, and its account is synced to this folder. So it is running with the same idea as this, is it has a folder on its computer that is synced to this one, right? And so in this case, I would be able to, for example, open the Cambodian Biodiversity Station, open the species fact sheet, and there is our PowerPoint. And this is the actual PowerPoint file that is running on the kiosk in the Nature Center. So I could open this on my computer from anywhere in the world. I could make some changes. I could save it. And because I've saved it, Google will know, hey, a change was made. And I'll demonstrate that right now. So let's just go ahead and change this from begin to start. Right? So I'm going to save that. Okay, that's fine. So it's saving there. This is a big presentation, so this might take a minute, even on a fast computer. This has 639 slides, and this was put together by some of my staff and volunteers over a long period of time. So I'm going to save this right now, and what happens when you save it is that Windows, the computer that I'm currently on, puts a date on this version. You don't have to do anything. It's automatic. So Windows now knows that this is a version that was created today, right? And what it will do is it will use that information to update Google Backup and Sync. So I can now close this, and what you'll notice is that this symbol has now changed to this syncing symbol. You will only see this within the Google Drive folders on your computer that are set up to sync. And so now this particular file, this PowerPoint file, is syncing up to the internet. So you're not going to see it right now because my Google Backup and Sync is very busy downloading lots of stuff. But once this is done, this file will be uploaded to Google Drive. It will upload it to the internet. That's step one. Once it's done with that, it will appear here. So it will actually appear inside NDC Stations and Biofact Station, Cambodian Biodiversity Station. So it will replace this file that you see right here. So this one is the older version, but this one has a newer date stamp on it. So it will be automatically uploaded, and it will automatically replace this one. I didn't make a copy. I didn't change the version. I just opened it, edited it, saved it. This version is now going to upload and replace this one. After that, on the other computer, the one in the Nature Center that is running the presentation, it will say, oh, hey, online, I see a new version of this file. Let me download it to my computer. And so it will start downloading it, and it will download the new version, which then can then be opened. Now, this PowerPoint happens to be huge, but plenty of other presentations or videos or photos are much smaller, and regular documents and files are pretty small. This happens in seconds. Even for a file like this, it would probably only take 5 minutes to sync, upload, and download from anywhere on Earth. And it is that easy to make those adjustments. And so that is the use case for Fauna in Focus using Google Drive and Google Backup and Sync, is that from anywhere in the world, any of us can access a shared file that is on our computer. We have the current live version synced, and we can make changes to it that then are automatically uploaded to the internet, to Google Drive Online, and then dispatched and automatically downloaded to all the devices that have the permissions for that folder. So that's the use case, and that's why I think it's very important to run Google Drive in conjunction with Google Backup and Sync, which again is this thing here, Google Backup and Sync. So this is the logo for Backup and Sync, right? Google Drive file stream is different. This is what you would use if storage space is a serious issue. And so what Google Drive file stream does is a little bit odd. It's almost exactly the same as Google Backup and Sync. So on my computer, my Google Drive folder would look exactly the same. So everything here would be exactly the same. I would have access to all of these files in exactly the same way using Windows Explorer. I could open PowerPoints. I could do everything the same. The difference is that none of these files, if I was using Google Drive file stream, this thing, so if I was using Drive file stream for Teams, none of these folders would actually be on my computer. So right now, Google Drive is taking up a lot of hard drive space on my computer because it is actually downloading and uploading files. So as you can see, our Cambodian folder is massive, 270 gigs, right? If I hold my mouse there, 270 gigs. So this is a very large folder, and it's taking up actual space on this computer, right? So it's actually using my hard drive space. With Google Drive file stream, the same folders appear here, the same files appear here, and you can even open them, but it takes up zero space. The downside is you can't open them instantly. Why? Because the files aren't really here. It's just showing you a link, and when you try to open something, basically when you say, okay, I want to open this particular file, Google Drive file stream will go and download that file from Google Drive for you. You can then view it, you can edit it, you can open it, you can work on it, you can close it, and that change will go back online, and then everything is the same. So it sounds great, right? Well, in most cases, that would be great. You're not wasting hard drive space on your computer, which can be a serious issue for some people. And you're also still able to access files that you cannot edit online, like PowerPoints or PDFs or Word files, right? These are not files that are that are editable while they're online. You have to download them to your computer. The downside, of course, is that the files don't really exist there. So if you don't have access to the internet, or if you don't want to be spending your time waiting for things to download, it doesn't work. And so for us, we are often teaching in remote areas. We go out to conservation sites and schools around the countryside to run events and activities, ranger training in the jungle, and you don't have a good connection there. And so for us, for our use case, Google Drive file stream just didn't make sense because the files weren't really there. It was just showing you what was there, and when you need them, it goes and streams them from online. Google Backup and Sync, in our case, makes much more sense because it keeps a copy downloaded to your computer. Oh, sorry. So that's a bit of a big introduction to that. So now that we understand what Google Drive is when we're looking at the online interface and what Google Backup and Sync is down here, we'll go through some of the settings and the preferences. So first of all, at the top of any Google Drive file or folder, you have your address, right? This is the location within Google Drive. And so if it's in My Drive, it's always going to start with My Drive. And You get these three dots when you start to go into subfolders and into subfolders until you run out of space, right? But if you click on it, it will show you the full address. So this particular file, I can say, is located in my drive, in FIF Cambodia Vault, in NDC stations, in Cambodian Biodiversity Station, in Cambodian Species Fact Sheet. That is the way that this reads, right? Like so. It's exactly the same read that you'll find in your offline or your on your computer Google Drive, right? So NDC stations, Cambodian Biodiversity, Cambodian Species. So right. So you'll notice this address here looks very similar to this address up here. So my drive, blah, 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 blah. It's because these folders and these file names are all synced to the internet. The only difference is that in this case, the first one is just called, in my case, FIF Google Drive, whereas online it will default to show this as my drive. And of course, these two things are not represented online because they don't exist. This is related to the hard drive that this folder is set up on. Another cool thing with Google Backup and Sync is that you can actually have multiple backup and syncs. So in this case, this backup and sync, as you can see, is through my work email. But if I wanted, I can actually click over here and add another account. And when you add another account on Google Backup and Sync on your computer, it's going to pop up with a window like this. And so it's going to say all your files at your fingertips, backup and blah. The first thing you're going to do is sign in, right? And so you can sign in with your personal email or with a secondary email that has different access, that has different files, and so on. I'm not going to do it right now because I actually don't need to set this up. I've already got it set up, but this is how you would do it. So you log in with your Google account here into Google Backup and Sync. And once you go through with that, the settings that I want to show you are actually accessible from here. Once you get signed in, it'll look something like this. So I'm going to go over to Preferences. So you're going to have three options over here on the left-hand side. We'll start with settings because you should see what this looks like. And this is how I would suggest leaving it. It is going to get annoying when it's constantly giving you warnings about removing items from shared folders. So I uncheck that. If you're not sure, you can leave that on, but it basically means anytime you try to remove a file on your computer, it is going to say, hey, this is a shared folder. This is going to affect other people's stuff. Are you sure you want to do this? And it does it so much that it gets a bit annoying. And the whole point of Backup and Sync is that you don't have to worry about that. You know, you just have to be careful. And if you want to remove something, you want to remove it for everybody, right? So just bear that in mind. Anything you're doing within that shared folder will go across to everybody. This is one of the few programs that I allow to start on system startup because I do want it to automatically update my Google Drive. And then I also want that file sync status icon to show in the menu here. And so this will allow me to see its kind of current status. Here's where you can adjust the network settings. So you can actually tell it to limit its speed if you're having an issue with your bandwidth. And that way you don't clog up everybody else's bandwidth. For me, I have it set to don't limit because we have a pretty good internet connection and therefore we don't really need to worry so much about our bandwidth limit. Another thing you can do here is disconnect the account. So if you switch computers or anything you want to do, disconnecting the account will basically just stop Backup and Sync from connecting the Google Drive online to the Google Drive folder on your computer. Now, the files are still there on your computer, but they are no longer connected and syncing. So if you disconnect and then you continue to make changes to them, they just become like regular folders on the rest of your computer. All right. The next thing we want to look at is Google Drive. Now, if you don't check sync my drive to this computer, nothing will sync. So the question of where it syncs is also important, and that is the folder location. This is only done when you are setting it up for the first time. So once you've got it set up, that's it. So it's a little bit cumbersome to move it. It is possible, but it takes a bit of finagling. You have to disconnect your account. You have to rename and move your drive just using Windows, and then you have to enable it. And when you're setting it up the first time, you can tell it to use an existing folder, and then it will check, hey, is this folder the correct folder? So it will kind of synchronize and make sure it's all correct. So it is possible to change the location, but you have to disconnect and then reconnect. So it's a bit of work. And then you also have the option of syncing everything in My Drive. And again, notice they say My Drive. That is referring to this here online. So everything in My Drive. So it won't sync this, and it won't sync this. It won't sync shared with me. So shared drives and shared with me, it will not sync. It is only syncing things in My Drive, right? At least for now. An update might change that. And then you also have the option of choosing not to sync certain folders. So, maybe you've shared all of your folders with a certain staff member, but they don't have that much space in their computer. So maybe one of your teachers does not need access to the marketing folders. Well, you could just choose to not give them access to that folder, but maybe they need access to something that's similar, and it's just easier to give them access to everything at once. There's many different reasons in which they might not want it. For example, our photo library is about 200 gigabytes. So there's no reason that you couldn't actually click in here and just say, you know what, the photo library, I'm not going to check that. Oh, it's 118 gigs. There you go. So you could uncheck various folders, and you can keep going through this. You can go into each folder kind of in a similar layout to a Mac, and then you can kind of scroll back and forth and just select, you know what, this folder, check, yes, this one, no. So if you kind of select it again, it'll uncheck everything or recheck everything. So you can get kind of customized. And if you've set up your Google Drive to be clear and organized, then that's going to make it easier for you. That's going to make your life easier. For me, I have plenty of storage space on my computer, so I'm going to let everything sync, everything in my drive. So I'm going to leave it at that. And then the last thing is my computer. And so this is a little bit strange. It basically just says, hey, do you also want to sync the rest of your computer? So like, for example, these folders, desktop, documents, pictures. And so what are they talking about there? Well, they're talking about these folders right here, these quick links on the side. And this is for your user. So this is something that you can choose if you want, but it will use your Google Drive storage space. And for me, I don't like this because actually, if I want something to sync, I will put it in my Google Drive folder on my computer, and then it will sync. I don't want it to sync these other folders. I need my stuff that is offline and my stuff that is syncing online. So for me, I actually uncheck all of these, and I make sure that, and I don't use Google Photos, actually. You're welcome to if you want, but that's all automatic AI-based stuff, which I tend to shy away from. So I would recommend unchecking all of this, and only using the Google Drive feature here. And so when you're going through the initial setup, it'll start you here. It'll then go to Google Drive and ask you to set up your location for your Google Drive. It'll ask you for the settings to confirm, and that's that. And once you've got that set up, it'll start doing this little symbol. So it'll start, syncing, and you'll see it start doing this kind of stuff. And the great thing is, if you are uploading or downloading something, you get a little notification. As I showed you, it'll show you the actual, the little icon, the spinning icon will show on your actual files that are being synced at the moment. So it's really a useful program. Another thing you'll note is that in the computer, you can actually tell when you're in this mode. So when you set your view to details list, you can actually see that these are all shared folders. So that little blue icon is telling me that this is not a private folder. This is a shared folder. And that works for all of these. So, but you have to be in the details list to see that these are shared folders. You'll see some here are not shared. These are things that I didn't necessarily want to share. So, so that's Google Backup and Sync and Google Drive Online. I think we covered everything there. We'll go into sharing settings now. So, sharing settings are important. Firstly, from any file, any folder, any location, you can click on this little button here to see the sharing access for this file. And you can change it as well. Viewer can only see it, but can't do anything with it. Commenter can leave comments on it. And editor can delete it, add it, edit it, modify it, so on. You can also give temporary access, which is pretty cool. That'll actually set a time limit on access to a particular file. So if you're working with external partners and you want to set up a collaborative project, you could set a time limit for that permission. And you can do that wherever you click. Again, it's going to be this particular folder that you're currently in, right? So just note that over here this affects this current folder, but over here now I'm looking at a different folder, right? So one of the ways in which I like to do it is just try to manage things from the top folder. And so to access the actual sharing for each folder, you would just right click on the folder and open the sharing settings here. And now you can see all of the people that have permission for that folder. And you can make adjustments as so. You can also create a link. And so if you create a link, then you can then send that link to anybody and they can then log in and see that folder. And you can do the same for each of the subfolders as well, right? So this just makes it easier for you to manage all of the various users within your account. All right. So if you have chosen in Google Backup and Sync to backup and sync your computer, so if we go to preferences here, if you have selected any of these folders, they will appear here. And as you can see, I tend not to sync anything through that because, again, I feel like they don't need that online. I don't need to back that up. And if I do want to back something up, I'll just put it in my drive. Now, shared drives are awesome, except for the fact that they don't work with backup and sync. Shared drives get over one of the biggest frustrations of Google Drive, and that is ownership, file ownership. Now, something to note is that when you create a file, if I go new and I create a new Google Doc, or if I drag a file from my computer, or I upload a folder, it automatically will assign me, the current user, as the owner of that file, regardless of who owns the folder or the drive file that you're working in. It will automatically create me, set me as the owner of that file. Now, it also will only, now the good thing is it will only charge me storage for my files, which means as director of the NGO, I will have probably access to everything, so I might need more storage. So in this case, I've got 1 terabyte of storage. But my staff, even though they're syncing 300 gigs of data in their Google Drive to their computer, they are actually only using the 30 gigabytes of free data that is provided by Google when they sign up for that account, because Google doesn't charge them for files that they don't own in terms of the storage space. So the storage space is only in relation to files that you own. Now that's all great, except when your staff or your volunteer leaves and they're not using that account anymore, or you need to make some serious adjustments to the files and you're not the owner of the file. Shared drives is how they thought to get around that. So this is how they ended up solving that problem, which is a pretty big problem. And they're super cool. They work exactly the same way. You can put stuff in it. You can have it shared with different people. But whoever's the owner of this shared file becomes the manager of that file. And what that means is that anything that is created in there is automatically owned by the manager of the folder. And it's a much better way for small groups to work together so that the permissions and the file ownership doesn't confuse the project later down the road. I was really excited when this was introduced and very disappointed when I found out that it simply does not work with backup and sync. Because again, for us, the most important thing is having files automatically update across all of the computers without us having to do anything. And so because shared drives cannot work with backup and sync, it's a useless feature for us. And so we didn't end up using it. Now, the final thing to go over is how to get files shared to your team and how they can add it to my drive. And I should point out, so that if I was to go, for example, to a folder here and share it with somebody, they would get a link. They would get an email notification that they've been added to a file, or added to a folder in Google Drive. And to see it, they would have to come down here to shared with me, right? Now, shared with me doesn't sync to Google Backup and Sync. It will not download stuff that has been shared to you. So, to get it to sync, you have to add it to my drive. And this is where we're going to get really confusing, and this is where Google Update comes into play. In the past, it was super easy. So here's something from one of our partners, CBGA, that they shared with us. So I'm going to right-click this, and in the past, right here instead of it saying add shortcut to drive, it just said add to my drive. Now that's great. This folder would then, not only would it exist here in shared with me, but if I clicked add to my drive, it would come up here to my drive and it would show up right there, right alongside my other stuff that's in my drive. The great thing is that I could then take that and organize it however I wanted. So I could, move it into, one of these other subfolders, and I could organize it however I liked, right? And that wouldn't affect how it's organized on the original owner's file or folders. So it was a really great setup. Unfortunately, what they've done now is they've gotten rid of that option and they've only added this shortcut, which is very annoying. So you click on this and it says, where do you want to put the shortcut? And so you go through this menu and let's say we'll put it here. So we'll add a shortcut in there. And so now when I go to my drive and I go here, there's going to be a shortcut for this stuff. And you can see that it's a shortcut because it's got this little arrow next to it. Now, again, the problem is it's just a shortcut. So when I click on this, it's actually just taking me to this shared with me folder, right? So it's not bringing me to my drive. It's bringing me back down here to shared with me. And again, shared with me doesn't sync to your computer. So the workaround to get it into your drive when you share something, I hope they bring this back. A lot of people have submitted complaints that essentially Google Backup and Sync is now broken because they removed that feature. I mean, there is no way for us to use this software as a team and have updates automatically go to everybody's computer with this feature removed. Because when I add stuff to a folder, they can't add it to my drive. That is a huge problem. But there is a temporary workaround. And let's see if I can figure out what it is. There it is. I don't know why they've made this so impossible, but the way to add it to my drive is you select the folder that you want to add to my drive and you click Shift-Z and it will pop up with this menu. Now, you'll note here that this doesn't say add shortcut, this says add. And if I click this, look at what's just happened. That folder has moved to my drive. So there it is. It's now actually in my drive. These files, these pictures are now actually in my drive, which means Google Backup and Sync will actually say, oh, you have a new folder in my drive, and it will download it directly to here. Now, it's not, as I mentioned, it's not going to do it now because it's, my Google Drive is very busy with lots of other stuff. But if it was a regular day, it would download that in a second, and it would all be there on my computer. So that's the top secret workaround for adding shared folders that have been shared with you to your drive. And again, from here, I can put this anywhere I want. That's not going to change the owner's version of that file. What will change is if I do have the permission for it, if I delete these, they will delete for everybody. So it is something to bear in mind. So I think that's going to wrap up our overview of Google Drive. I'm sorry this was a very long one, but it's kind of a more complex one and an important one to understand. This feature, this add shortcut, really drives me crazy. We've got a few more things to go through. Let me just real quickly go through a few other things. So first of all, if you want to delete something, so in this is just a shortcut, so there's no danger of me removing that, no problem. So if you want to remove something, there's a few different ways you can do it. So first, you can right-click and remove. And again, if it's a shared folder, it's going to say, hey, are you sure you want to remove this? Like other people are using this folder, because it will remove it for everybody. Another way you can do it is from Google Drive on your computer. You can just delete a particular folder, right? And if you delete it, there's no warning message. It'll go to your trash can, right? So luckily, on Windows, you can recover it from your trash can, right? If you realize you made a mistake. But if you delete it here, that deletion will be noticed by Google Backup and Sync, and it will automatically remove it from here. The same is true of renaming your folders, right? I can right-click these folders here and rename them however I like, and that change will automatically, through Google Backup and Sync, be reflected on the folders and files on your computer. You can also reorganize them. So if I decided that, Nature Discovery Center can go inside graphics, I can just pick this folder up, move it around, and put it inside graphics. And the same thing will happen over here. My Nature Discovery Center will have put itself inside graphics. If I do that change here, in a few minutes, it'll update it to the online one as well. So either way you do it, if you're using Google Backup and Sync, that change should be reflected not only between your offline version and your online version, but also to all the other computers that are accessing that same folder. You can also set the color, as you can see. And so that's super easy. You just right click it and change the color. And I recommend this for your top level folders. So for example, if we open this, you'll notice that I use lots of capital letters. That's just to make it easier to read on small screens and so on. Try to keep these names short as well, right? Like the longer it is, the more it's difficult to read. So the shorter, the better. And so the colored ones draw your eye. And so I can very quickly find what I'm looking for. I don't need to go, where's project management again? Oh, it's the big red one. Yeah, no problem. The folders that you use a lot or that you want to be able to find quickly. That's also helps with capitalizing things. If it's a folder you don't use very much, then you can maybe have it small letters. You don't need color. But for folders that you're using a lot or you want to be able to easily identify it, you can quickly do that. And changing the color doesn't change it for everybody. So this is just a personal thing for each user. You can also add it to star, so it'll become one of your favorites. And another nice trick here is that from the right-click menu, you can show the location, right? So remember I showed you before how sometimes this thing gets too long and it starts doing these little dots, right? Well, I'll go show you an actual example of that. So let's go to this one. Oh, no, let's go to... Yeah. So for example, right here at the top, we have our quick access folder. So this is like files and folders that you've been working on recently. So if I wanted to know, well, hey, that's great that I'm working on this recently, but I also need to know where it is. Where is this organized? So I can right click this and show the file location and it will bring me there. And say, oh, Fauna Focused International Interactive Lessons, which means now I know how to find it on my computer, right? I don't need to go hunting around to try to find, hey, where did I put that? Where did I put that file again? I know exactly where it is. So there it is. So this is how you kind of can help search for and find objects and files and so on online. So you just right click, show file location. All right. And again, they're adding new features all the time. So this is, this might change in the future, but this is just our use case for Google Drive. A couple other quick tricks. You've got your menu over here that gives you more information. So you can see if you click on a particular file, you can see the activity on it. So when was it last edited? What has been done within this folder? So if something disappears, you can see who disappeared it, and you can go chase them down and say, hey, can you restore this? You deleted this by accident. You also get details of particular files that are selected. So, who has access to it, where is it, so on. You can change the view here from icon list to list of, the files within here. So you can change how you view it. For me, I find it easier to, navigate this way and see the recent stuff at the top, and everything is nice and big. And there's some more settings in here that I think we don't need to go through. Yeah, here's how you buy additional storage. Yeah, so you can choose to convert it to Google Docs. If you're uploading Word files, it can just automatically create a doc version if you want. We're going to go through Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides. That's another day. You can set notifications, manage your apps. These are, again, your integrations from other things. So yeah, I don't think we need to go through all that. This really sums it up. Again, you can navigate on the side just as you would as if you were on a computer, so it makes it easier for you to bounce around through your different folders. I think that sums it up. Here's your trash can. Oh, remember that also you have a search bar. So if you really can't find a file, you can look up volunteering contract, and you can just do a search for it, and it'll pull up a search like this. But when you actually want to open it, you might need to right click and show file location, right? And now it's going to bring you to that folder. So, oh, okay, that's where I'm keeping that information. So it's just, this is how it's very easy to go through and find what you need. And again, if it's something like this, like a PDF, like I can't edit this PDF online, right? This is stuck here, right? But at least now I know where it is. So Vault, admin, volunteering. So now on my computer, super easy. I can just go to Cambodia, admin, volunteering. And there it is. So that's exactly the same files that I see here. So it's that fast. I think that's going to be it. I think we've summarized everybody. Google Photos we're not doing. That link's there. That opens the folder. We went through this. Pause preferences. Add new account. We went through all of that. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's going to wrap up our very long Google Drive and Backup and Sync overview. Again, Google File Stream is an option if you always have internet connection and you struggle with storage space on your computer. But again, I would recommend ignoring Google Drive File Stream and sticking with Google Drive and Google Backup and Sync together. It's a great combination. It's great to not have to worry about... let me put it to you this way. I never upload versions and then download versions. I never do that. It just doesn't happen. So all of Fauna in Focus always has the most up-to-date file. If my staff updates an education program and when they save and close it, that update is automatically uploaded and then distributed to all the computers that need it. And that's all done automatically through Google Drive and Google Backup and Sync. There's no real reason that any of us ever have to drag and drop or upload a file directly to Google Drive. It's so easy. You just save it in your computer and away it goes. One last thing to note is that Google files, for example, this volunteering contract, this is a Google Doc. This is not a Word doc. We tend to use Google Docs. So Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, any of those kind of things, they actually do not exist on your computer. Even though right here, hang on, where did you go? Oh, I lost it. So let me open it up again. What was it? Cambodia, admin, volunteering. Admin, volunteering. Right. So you'll notice here, I can even go to this format so it shows it. This is a .gdoc. This is not a .doc. I cannot open this with Word. And you'll notice the size is also tiny. The reason it's tiny is because there's nothing here. This is just a link. If I double click this, watch what happens. I'm clicking it on my computer. It's just going to open Chrome and open my Google Doc online. So if you delete your online version, if I was to delete this, but keep this, that does nothing for me. I made this mistake once. It's a very silly mistake to make. This is not a backup file. This is not an offline file. It's just a link. It's just a shortcut to go to your file, which is living in the cloud. If you're using Google Docs to Google Sheets, Word documents are different. PDFs are different. JPEGs are different. It's only going to affect those cloud-based applications like Docs, Sheets, and Slides. Right, I think my voice is giving out because this has been such a long video, but it is an important topic. Google Drive is probably the most powerful tool that we use at Fauna in Focus for efficient teamwork workflow, followed shortly by Asana, which we'll get to in a later video. So that's going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for sticking around, and hopefully you learned a thing or two and can try deploying Google Drive to your team and to the project that you're working on, and hopefully it makes your life a little bit easier and helps your team and your staff do their job a bit better. And that's going to be it for me, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.